Hello and welcome back to another Wheel Wednesday, where I spin this wheel and then do the prompt that is on the wheel. The wheel is still off to the right. I don't know. I don't know. Today's prompt was from 4 Elements, and it was, they have a few, so there's second wheel incoming. I don't want to spoil it, even though you already know, maybe, sort of, kind of, because of the thumbnail and stuff, and the title. It is a biopunk tinkerer. And then it's the, could be anything from messing up with runes, nanobots, change biological tissue, up to me. And I used that up to me pretty strongly, I feel. As I ended up going with a stitching thing. A creature with big sewing needle arms and then lots of thread. Which, I mean, I feel it's still biopunk. It's a living organism stitching up some other presumably living organism or soon to be living organism. And if you imagine this as something that was once a human, then like that's pretty biopunk with all the modifications. What else to say? The needles that are arms. I was thinking of sewing needles, like the, yeah, obviously, but I'm talking about like the sewing machine sewing needles, where they have the little eye of the needle on the end, rather than on like the top of the needle, I guess. And then the thread goes technically underneath. I'm not sure the full mechanics of it, but I know it's really complicated. And it probably wouldn't work with just having big arms as sewing needles, but I don't care. I drew it that way, so it works that way. Yeah. And I was thinking about these like pink tubes, I guess, going from the fleshy tubes, whatever, coming from the needle arms, and also, I guess, the face, that those would have thread through them, which I kinda only sorta show, but like, you'd probably only notice with me telling you that I added a red line eventually when I get to make the thread part inside those pink tubes, as if it was slightly transparent, but like, it's barely noticeable. Which is why I'm saying it now. What else? I guess the creature that this guy ends up working on, I was trying to think of how to make it look like a weapon, and I kind of ended up not doing that too much. I mean, I'll explain it more when I start drawing it in the actual video, so, you know, you can actually see what I'm talking about rather than just me rambling about it right now. Because I'm just talking about it right now because I don't know what the heck to talk about with this guy. Just a chill dude who really appreciates thread and is also probably unable to move from this location due to all these augmentations. And seemingly being hooked up to thread as if it was a life support system, which maybe it is. Honestly, thinking about it, it probably kind of is, with how this guy ends up looking, being stitched together rather than just actually being one living mass. I mean, I guess it's still one living mass, it's just connected in ways that are probably not surgically sound. Yeah, here I'm finally actually adding the thread. And for probably 90% of this, I was keeping it really bright red glowy thread, thinking of it as being some sort of maybe magical life-giving thread. And then near the end I actually put some shadows on it. Okay, but talking about the weapon, I was thinking of the head like maybe an artillery piece or something, which is kind of in reference to one of 4 Elements' other prompts of being an artillery piece. But you know, that's still on the wheel. That's still on there. This is not taking that one away. I was just thinking that biopunk, where like cyberpunk has a lot of crazy futuristic-y weapons, that biopunk also would have things like flesh weapons. So that's what I was thinking of when doing this head design. But with the framing of everything, that's really all there is to be shown, where you can't really see the rest of the body of it. If there is more body to it, you know, you can't tell. It's just a head and weird mass of flesh skin stretched out. But you know, that's fine. And, you know, the stitcher up there is working on it. You know, they're getting to it. They worked on the head because that part's really important. You know, it's got the eyes, the gateway to the soul, and whatnot, and assumedly a brain of some sort. But you know, who knows? Honestly, it might just be thread in there. It's probably just thread in there. Okay, it's probably almost definitely only thread. Well, I don't know. I haven't thought about it that far. But I did stuff this guy full of thread in the end. And with the thread coming off of the little needles from the stitcher, I was trying to show that it is somewhat similar to a sewing machine. At least an in-progress sewing machine. Now, how does it work as a sewing machine? Going back to this rant. I don't know, maybe underneath this creature weapon thing, there is like those little paddles that actually hold down the creature, even though those are normally up top. So I don't know. It just works, okay? It just works. The future biopunk stuff and things. Maybe it's a weird tendon thread or something. I don't know. It just does. Oh yeah, here I'm actually also adding the stitching to the stitcher themselves, just to, you know, tie it all together with some thread. Yep. That's you know, it also helps show that like maybe at one point this was a human or close to a human, since you can tell the sewing arms are sewn on rather than, you know, being part of it, whereas the more humanoid arms are not sewed on. So you can imagine that those are, like, you know, originally there too. Just adding some more detail to the weapon thing. More sewing, more thread, I guess. It's not really stitched up in there. It's kind of... I was just going a little wild with it. Show that it was stuffed rather than carefully stitched on the inside. I thought, I gotta add more stitching. It is like the main contrasty color, bright red. It's also like the main, I guess, it's not really a main focus, but it is, in my opinion, one of the main subject matters. It's just the red thread. And now I was thinking, wow, there's this really awkward, empty section. Time to fill it with, I don't know, random previous experiments or in-progress things. And add some light in there because it's dark and dingy. And toe spooky. Brighten up a bit. And no, I don't know what any of the things in the back are other than, like, kinda, sorta being human torsos. Well, 2 of them. I don't know what the other 2 are. And then I think it's just like lighting and shadows from this point on. Yeah. Overlay there, a little bit of multiply. Well, not layer. I just did it directly on the body. Did multiply and overlay. And then I go into the threads and add in shadows there. Anyway, thank you for watching this Wheel Wednesday. Until next Wednesday, bye bye, bye bye, bye bye, bye.